Yeah, and you know the funny thing about it is you don't think it's that bad until I left Florida, and
Yeah.
then that's when it hit me. Like I felt like I was just like in a hostage situation. I'm finally getting out.
What is up, guys? Jason here. Welcome back to the channel and our new series, Nurses to Riches, The Road to Fire. In our last episode, we had our first guest in the series, Lawrence. It's a great video, and if you want to watch it, make sure you go to our channel and check it out. But today we have Irve, and like we did with Lawrence, we're going to talk to Irve about his nursing career, his finances, his net worth, and his future goals. So with that, Irve, go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know what made you become a nurse and what state you currently live in.
Hi, pleasure to be here. Uh, I'll start with I'm currently living in California, which is just where I'm at is in Fillmore, was just a little bit just outside of LA County. So I'm commuting into, one of the positions that I have here, but I also work a second position in another city, which I'll get into a little bit detail later.
Okay.
But one of the things that made me become a nurse is like I got into nursing a little bit later down the line. I graduated in under psychology, followed a different path, was working in business for a little bit. I just wasn't finding it fulfilling. Ended up going back to working my valet job, which I was making great money doing at the time. But it just wasn't really getting me to where I needed to be in life. And I ended up going back like later down the line. I started in when I turned 31. And then my uncle got me to go back into, going to school and becoming a nurse. He was a taxi driver in New York until the age of like 52
Wow.
and went back to nursing and graduated and was he just ended up opening all these doors and possibilities that he never would have imagined. And he was just like, if I can do it, not even from this country, at the age of like 51, you can do it too. And it's
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
inspiring for
yeah,
sure.
science scared me. And then until I
Yeah,
dived into it and I found out how interesting it was.
that is pretty cool. So how long have you been a nurse?
So I've been a nurse since 2000. I graduated in 2015. I got my first job started in January of 2016.
Okay, okay. So, what month did you pass your NCLEX? Do you remember?
Yeah, so I was, our school was pushing us to take the test as soon as possible, and
Oh,
and one of the things I try to tell the nurses is don't wait too long.
that's
I
true.
over prepped. I
I agree.
studied everything I could possibly study, and I didn't take my test until like 3 months after. So I graduated in August, and then I took my test probably like maybe close to end of October, and
Oh,
then that basically just everything just started steamrolling from there.
yeah. So it took you about 3 months to land your first job. Then you said in January you were able to find a job.
Well, yeah, I found that. Yeah, just about in January, I found my job, and then so one of the things I had to do, and I had to learn the hard way, is I had to market myself. I thought the
Yeah.
job was just going to come to me, and I was going the traditional route, which I'll never go again. It's like going through Indeed, and
Yeah.
and we've all done it before because
Right.
it's like that's what everybody else did, so you did it until I got so hungry that I started going to every single like nursing job fair. I started meeting with recruiters. I started calling recruiters, and one thing that I would do is I would say that even though I didn't submit a resume, I was just like, "Could I talk to the recruiter?" Because
Yeah.
I sent in a resume. I wasn't sure if he saw it. If I built up a good relationship with him, they would be like, "Well, just go ahead and send it
Yeah.
again, and I'll take a look."
That is a
Literally,
good tip right there.
you just gotta hustle. And then,
That's true.
like within 2 weeks, I got several job offers to like all the
Wow.
hospitals that I wanted.
Yeah. You know, when I get new grads telling me they're having a hard time finding a job, I'm like, okay, but what did you do? And they said, well, I just applied and applied and I applied. I'm like, okay, but what else did you do? There's more to it than just applying for a job. You know, you
Yeah,
can continue applying for years and still not get a job, but you really do have to put yourself out there sometimes in order to find a job. So, and I
exactly.
remember when I was in nursing school, the thing that I did was I tried to make friends with all of my clinical instructors, my preceptors. Some of them were managers in the departments that I ended up applying to. And one of them, she actually worked, she was a manager within the hospital. So as soon as I passed my NCLEX, I sent her a text message because I had her phone number, and I asked her if she was looking to hire anybody because I was looking for a job. And immediately she just asked me for my resume, forwarded it to the recruiting manager, and I got a job offer within that week. So it was
That's
that for me
awesome.
because you have to learn how to make connections too, and that helps a lot. But the way you went about it, I think it's actually one of the smartest ways. And for people who are introverted, it's going to be kind of hard, because to put yourself out there like that, it might feel kind of uncomfortable. But if you want to get a job, it's going to be one of the best ways to get a job.
Yeah, and I consider myself an introvert myself, and I
Yeah.
really had to push myself out of my comfort zone. And one of the ways that I did that is, you know how when you're in class or when you're in nursing school, nobody wants to be the person that stand up and give that answer or raise their hand. So I just started being that person, and
Mhm.
it started like pushing me into the direction where I needed to go. So I ended up becoming the president of the National Nursing Association
Wow.
at that location or at my school, and then also ended up becoming the kind of like the class president, and then
Okay.
representing it, which is completely out of my nature. I don't like to speak up. I don't like to be the one to talk or be in the front of the class. And then, like, as I just started pushing myself towards it, it just started kind of coming to me. And then I just leaned into it.
So you said you've been a nurse now since 2016, January 2016. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Started
And what
in South Florida.
South Florida, out of all places.
Yeah.
And do you remember what your hourly rate was at the time?
My hourly rate was, I think it was about $22 an hour.
Wow.
That was my base. And for me,
Mhm.
I was working in valet, and I was
Yeah.
making decent money. So it was kind of like lateral, if not a little bit more than
Yeah.
I was making. But it's just like, at the same time, it's like you go through all this schooling, you go through all this work.
Right?
And it's just
Yeah.
like, I just got that little, that little
Yeah.
bump.
It's kind
Um,
of like dehumanizing if you think about it. You
it
went through all of the
is.
schooling, thinking you would be earning a lot more for all of the work and all the sacrifices you had to make to go through nursing school.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is you don't think it's that bad
Mhm.
until I left Florida, and
Yeah.
then that's when it hit me. Like I felt like I was just like in a hostage situation. I'm finally getting out, and then it's just like I see what the real world is like.
It's funny that you say that because when I worked in New York, which is a state, or New York City, which is a city that pays half, if not less than half of what we currently make in California, I had a lot of coworkers that moved from Florida because they said they were making so little in Florida. And I talk to my coworkers from New York City all the time. I'm like, if you thought Florida was bad, New York is also bad compared to California. you
Yes,
know?
and then
New York is to California what Florida is to New York, right?
yeah, and it basically and outside of that, it's not even that doesn't even include the working conditions, and that's an
Absolutely,
entirely different aspect of it.
I agree. And which department did you first land your job in?
So I started in telemetry, and then I'm still in telemetry now. And one thing that I will also include is telemetry. I would say it's well rounded. I did have the opportunity to start in ICU, but I took some bad advice from some legacy nurses that are just like, oh, start. You don't want to start there. Start here and get your experience. Then move.
Yeah,
I tell nurses all the time,
yeah,
whatever you can start in,
yeah,
if it's elevated, if you feel like it's advanced practice, if they have a training program, do it,
mhm.
because it's just like you could always go down. You want to
That's
go
true,
down to
that's
telemetry,
true,
then it's harder to go up.
that's true, you're right. Did you ever consider becoming a CRNA? Is that why you said you made a mistake by not going to the ICU?
I did consider it at one time, but actually, and you touched on it in a previous interview that you did. Is now that I'm working in California, it's it's getting like the appetite to necessarily
Yeah,
advance to CRNA. It's becoming lower and lower.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, can you tell me what you said you work in telemetry still, and
Mhm.
how much do you currently earn per hour?
So it's a mixed bag because right now I'm working a travel assignment at the same time as I started my per diem. And,
Wow.
got into my per diem at Kaiser. I followed all your
Okay.
steps and everything like
Yep.
that, like word for word. And I got the job.
That's
But
awesome.
so I was working at Stanford for about like 3 years.
Oh,
I ended up heading the department there for clinical advisory and triage. That was like one of my last legs of traveling. So I started in, of course, Florida, where my journey started. Started
mhm.
making $22 an hour. Thought that's what it was. My girlfriend, which is my wife now at the time, we met while I was working in Florida at Disney World. And yeah, I was valet parking at Disney World, worst
Okay.
outfits ever.
Yeah.
She was with me on this journey the whole time. She ended up moving to Washington, and I was still in my first year. We met like while she was in a college program
Okay.
there, so she had to finish up her schooling. I finished mine. I was working, so I went to go travel out to Washington State, where she was staying with her family after graduating. I did a travel assignment out there, and this was my first year out of working. So like I
Oh,
only worked a year, and I went straight into
wow.
travel nursing, which a
Wow.
lot of people said is crazy.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
But I'm from Florida,
Yes.
so we had 7-to-1 ratios there,
Oh,
telemetry.
man.
And then so when I went out to Washington, it was a little bit different. We had 7 patients, but I was on an RN LPN team, and so I directed the LPN, and we would oversee 7 patients. They would take
Okay.
care of 4, I would take care of 3, and I would give a report on 7.
That's
So
pretty cool.
yeah, it was very different. So like
And
I was
as a traveler, you're saying this is what you were able to do?
yeah, as a
That's
traveler.
a pretty nice gig for a traveler.
Yeah, it was interesting, and
Yeah.
I went up to getting a weekly that I was getting paid there was 1,600 a week, whereas
Wow.
my biweekly when I was working in Florida starting out, I was getting 1,500 every 2 weeks.
That what?
So
That is a huge difference.
just like that,
Yeah.
doubled my pay.
Yeah.
So like the one thing I liked Washington, a great group of people that I was working at Tacoma General there. One of the issues I had there was the weather.
Oh,
It was
a lot of
very
a lot of rain?
it. I thought people were exaggerating when they talk about like the rain in Washington. I'm coming from
Yeah.
Florida, so we have tropical storms and all that, but it
Okay.
is a constant rain that just lasts for days and days. You don't see the sky. I got there in January. I didn't see the sun until like May for the
Oh my
first time.
that sounds pretty depressing.
It's depressing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we lasted there for a few months. Then,
Yeah.
I got the bug to just try out California. Um, the challenge and another thing I tell nurses is you got to start your paperwork early because that
Okay.
transition process was no joke. I jumped out there on a whim thinking it was just like, oh, okay, this is just going to happen. I
Yeah.
made my money, while I was working in Tacoma in
Yeah.
Washington. And, I was just like, I could relax, get a feel for the city and things like that. It took 3 months
Wow.
for my license to get approved. So I didn't work for those 3 months.
Wow.
It
Yeah.
was about like maybe 2 months or something like that.
That's tough. But you were still having to pay rent at this time. All your bills were still coming in.
Yeah,
You
those were
had no
still coming in.
did you have
So
any money saved at all?
So all that nice chunk of change that I had, I ended up spending a lot on rent. It wasn't that bad, but
Mhm.
I ended up putting a little bit into real estate investment as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So like I just put it and let it sit. I went in
Yeah.
a deal with like my dad and my brother, and then we just kind of put it in a couple thousand. So it decreased the available like income that I had as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of put me in a little bit of bind. But as soon as I started working again, I was perfectly fine.
Okay. And when you're talking about the application process, you're talking about to California, correct?
Yes. So
Okay.
going through the license approval process, filling out the forms, getting the FBI fingerprinting,
Yeah.
which just to get an appointment for the printing, it was a whole ordeal. So
Yeah.
to speed up the process, I heard it's easier if you go into California, do your
Yes.
fingerprinting there, and then so I just did that. Took a plane ticket while I was still transitioning from Washington, and then just try to get everything done as soon as I could possibly, so I could start working.
Yeah. See,
So
yeah. The one thing I tell everybody is, if you're going to get a job in California, don't expect to be in a hurry.
yes.
If you're coming from another state, I did make a video talking about all of the steps that it took for us to move to California. And what we decided to do was just travel to California because we had never been here before. We took like 2 vacations just so we can get a feel for what all of the cities look like and what, which one we would want to move to.
Mm,
And after we decided on one of the cities, we ended up in San Diego on a vacation, and we just did our live fingerprint scan over there.
yep.
We submitted our application. Everything was submitted by the time we were on vacation, and within actually like I think it was like 3 weeks, we had everything approved. And part of that is because we came here to California to get our live scan done, I believe.
Mhm.
It was just much simpler that way. But then you'd have to spend, however amount of money for that plane ticket, the hotel stay, the Airbnb, whatever the case may be. So it's going to cost you a little more if you do it that way.
Yeah, and if I could do it all again, I'd still do it.
Yeah,
Just because the end result, it was what it was.
yeah. So you
So
said you ended up getting a job at Stanford as your first job in California.
no, actually, I started in Southern California at first.
Oh,
So I was working at a few different hospitals doing a travel assignment. I got into registry. My pay went up maybe a little bit more. I would say I was getting a little bit to I would say maybe 1,800 a week is when I first got into California, Southern California. Um, but then the travel assignments kind of dried up at that period, which was like in 2017, at
yeah.
least in the Southern California where I was at. I
Mhm.
underestimated the traffic.
Oh,
So, me thinking it's just like, oh, well, we have this assignment that's 40 miles from here.
yeah,
That's like, that's 30 miles from here. Before, like, I got here, I was just like, oh, yeah, yeah, sure. Like, I'll just go ahead and do that.
yeah.
I was working 12 miles from where I was living, and it would take me an hour and a half to get to work.
What?
And then it just put
Oh
such a sour
man.
taste in my mouth.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I then ended up transitioning and doing a few travel assignments in Northern California.
Mhm.
And then my weekly pay just kept on creeping up and creeping up. And that's when I just got like, I found the Bay Area and I was this close to moving back to Florida after doing a travel assignment. My travel assignments out there, I worked at, El Camino. I worked
Oh,
at Sutter. I worked at Kaiser. I worked at a few different places up there.
mhm.
And, I noticed that I was getting the things I needed, but now I was getting to the point where it was just like I had my wife out here. We wanted to get a house. And at the time, travel nurses have difficulty applying for mortgages. And it's
Oh,
a whole
yeah,
entire ordeal, which I can go in for hours on, but I will
yeah,
spare you the details.
yeah.
So one of the reasons why I decided to take an actual staff position.
Mhm. And as part of the reason why travel nurses have a hard time obtaining a mortgage is because they have inconsistent income,
Hmm.
or that, it's just because, travelers oftentimes will take gaps of unemployment so they can go vacation. They can just take some time off to just like, R&R.
Yeah.
Is that part of the reason? What exactly is behind it?
So, the part of the reason is many lenders, even today, they don't understand travel nursing.
Mm.
And one of the biggest problems is you have your actual pay, the money that you're getting in that's going into your bank account
Yeah,
is different from the numbers that they want to see.
yeah,
So they go off of your taxable income, but you get a large tax stipend, which is
yes,
non-taxable.
yeah,
And then when you get to like the lenders themselves, they
mhm,
see that you're making the money. They know that you're making the money, but they
yeah,
have to send that up to the underwriter. And
yeah,
then the underwriter, they have these set standard principles that they go by. They have to go by black and white. They could see that you're making the money, but they just don't know how to calculate it.
yeah,
But over my time, I've been able to kind of vet different lenders, and I've
mhm.
been able to identify certain lenders that are kind of a little bit more familiar with the travel nursing and how it works. So I kind of been able to manage it that way.
You
And
would think that
also,
by now they'd figure it out, right? Like, that's an untapped market. There are so many travel nurses out there.
yes, and one thing that I did notice is when the pandemic started and
Mhm.
travel nursing just started become popping up everywhere. they started paying attention. Who are all these nurses making this money that they keep hearing about? So now they want to give the loan to nurses.
Right. They're like, now we need to get in on that.
Yeah, exactly. It's missed opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so so run me through the timeline. You started in Florida, right? You were making
Yeah,
about $22 an hour. Then you went to Tacoma, Washington as a traveler, and you were
yeah,
making about $1,600 a week, right? So you went from
$1,600 a
like
week.
$1,500 a week in Florida to $1,600 a week in Tacoma, Washington. And then you
Mhm.
went to Southern California where you took another travel assignment, and it took you about 3 months to get your nursing license for California.
Correct.
And then you started creeping your way up towards Northern California. You said you worked
Mhm.
at El Camino, you worked at Sutter, Kaiser. Any other hospitals? Did you work at Washington Hospital by any chance?
I didn't work at Washington hospitals, and one of the reasons why is, I got my associates. I
Yeah,
haven't obtained my bachelor's yet, and I think
yeah,
Washington Hospital is still one of the hospitals
um,
where you have to have a bachelor's. Stanford, you actually do as well,
yeah.
but I came in as a traveler, and they ended up I kind of caught on so well that they really wanted me in the department, so they just brought me in.
Wow.
So basically I just had to get it within like a few years, depending on
Yeah,
whatever position I tried to go up to. But I just, I went up from there. I think I got up to like maybe 1800, 1900. And then I think at Stanford, I was at one point about like 2000 a week.
wow,
And then I ended up coming on, and then like I left just December of last year to go back to travel nursing.
wow.
So at the point that I left, my yearly income got up to about 200,000 a year
No, wow, that is awesome. At Stanford.
at Stanford.
Damn. And did you enjoy working at Stanford?
I did like working at Stanford. One of the challenges that I had is, like you've just discussed before, with like union hospitals.
Yeah.
I was on the bottom of the total pool when it comes to the union. So my seniority was so low that I would never get vacations.
Yeah.
I never had the time off. It would never get approved because with a large department, if anybody else that had seniority over me wanted a day off within that week, I just didn't get that approval request. And even though I was making this money and I was like managing the department, at one point, I still wouldn't be able to get that time off that I wanted and have the time that to enjoy it myself. So I was just like, let me just go back into travel nursing.
Yeah. See, that's one of the things again that I really dislike about unions. I remember, and you know what though, it also is, I think, management and director dependent about how you get your vacations approved. Because at one point, me working at Kaiser in an ER, we had a director that would approve everybody's vacations, no questions asked.
Yeah.
Me, I live for my vacations. Like I don't know if you saw one of my videos. I work 20 hours a week currently. I work 8-hour shifts and I work 2 days one week, 3 days the other week. But the way that I am able to manipulate my schedule, I can swap one of my days with a coworker and I get 9 days off every other week without even having to use my PTO. Right. And I mean, currently I'm making not much. It's about $2,800 every 2 weeks on a biweekly period when I don't pick up overtime,
Mhm.
right? And that's working 20 hours a week.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
man, at the beginning of the year, I was bringing in like at least $5,000 biweekly
Hmm.
because I would just pick up on the days that I was working. I didn't even have to come in on my days off. I would just pick up,
That's awesome.
right? Yeah. So, okay. So you said right now you have a per diem position. You're no longer at Stanford.
Mhm.
Where is your other job as a traveler?
It's at University of Southern California.
Cool. Okay. Wait,
Uh,
so how is the Kaiser per diem position also in Southern California?
it's in Northern California. So
How are you doing that?
it's not for the weak.
Oh my
So
God.
I go back and forth.
I see.
I've been part of the the fire movement,
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
save up as much as possible. When I left my position at Stanford, I went back to traveling. My rate was about $7,800 a week.
Wow.
So
Wow. What?
so this is the things they don't talk about,
No, not at all.
And
hold on. Let me process this. You said 7,800 a week?
7,800 a week.
Jeez.
And this was kind of like at the towards the end of the pandemic, starting in January.
Yeah.
So these were the rates that people were getting. I was working 48 hours. So it's a little bit, much for some. You got to push yourself. I've known
Yeah.
some nurses that are doing like the 5-day a week, 6-day a week, and they're making upwards to like 10,000 at that time. But I was just like, I was seeing that I wanted to make a lot of quick sort of money moves, kind of get the ball rolling. I had some financial, aspects that I was working on that I was trying to address as well, because we had our house in Oakland,
Yeah.
and that me and my wife purchased. I get 2 additional houses for investment.
What?
And
Okay, yeah, you're thinking big for sure. For sure.
we were just swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
One of the deals didn't end up going through. We were trying to purchase one in 2 new builds, actually. This one, the one we're staying in Southern California. The other one we were trying to purchase was in Arizona. And originally we were gonna attempt to try to start a assisted living facility, like a residential assisted living. But since the deal didn't follow through, it kind of like muddied the waters, because starting it here in California is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So we put that on ice at the time, but I needed the income to be able to have the down payment for the 2 houses and cover the mortgage where I was staying
Yeah.
in Oakland, California.
Damn, that's rough.
So
Yeah.
big bills, big deals.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you know what? You're working extra, and you're trying to earn more money, not so you can just spend it on lavish vacations. You're trying to invest that money, which is the right way to do it. You don't want to be
Yeah.
living paycheck to paycheck just so you can spend that money on material things that you're no longer going to be able to enjoy later on. At least with
Yes.
you trying to invest in properties, you're gonna reap all of those rewards once you own those properties and you're renting them out or reselling them, whatever the case may be. So it's an awesome way to look at it. If you're gonna be working extra hours.
Yeah, and like, I also I kind of had the fire lit under me. I started with My Rich Journey,
Yeah.
actually, because you mentioned that previously. Like that's literally what we started investing in. It was right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Mhm.
They had this one challenge where it's just like, they're putting in the same amount as you,
Yeah.
and then you're just like investing into certain, like, funds and stuff like that. And I just started like, just putting the money away instead of like spending it on anything.
And
So I just kind of like extracting available money to spend
yeah,
on stupid stuff.
yeah. And I guarantee you the 7,800 a week you were earning is more than what the My Rich Journey couple was earning combined.
Yeah,
It
and
was.
and I try not to even like think about it. Like I was getting the 7,800, and then so I kept in my mind the money that I was making,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't think about the other money that I
Yeah.
was just stuffing away,
Yeah.
stuffing away.
And was your wife on board with the whole fire movement? Is she? Because I know it's hard to get both couples on the same path, and same direction.
Yeah, she was the one poking me about it
Oh,
before I even kind of like, she introduced me to it,
wow! You found the right
and
one.
the right one. And it kind of turned our mindset around. And then all of a sudden that bug that got me into like the learning of like nursing and health and everything like that, I kind of just pivoted it towards financial investing,
Yeah.
and I just dug into it. I wanted to learn everything about financial markets, investing, stocks, real estate, and I just started like consuming whatever I could find.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Do you guys have any kids by any chance?
No kids as of yet.
Okay,
Just
okay.
we're dog parents right
Keep it
now.
like that.
Yeah,
It makes things so much easier.
yeah.
And when do you plan to retire or reach financial independence?
Very soon.
Very.
I'm setting the kind of like the wheels in motion. So I already established my LLC probably about like 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
I never utilized it to like what it could do. I just knew I just needed to have an LLC.
Okay.
For whatever I decided to do. And I decided to just like keep the name general. So whatever the direction that I started to do my business, I can go ahead and, drive into that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden kind of just a light hit me where it's just like, why not do something in healthcare?
Yeah.
So I want to try to have a job away from the bedside, but still doing something in health to some capacity. So one of the ventures that I wanted to kind of go into is just health coaching.
Yeah.
And then basically just guiding patients getting out of the hospital or people just looking to improve their lives.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that I can utilize as a personal business, but at the same time be able to work just to kind of cover bills and stuff like that, which is why I took the per diem position. I wanted to set myself up where I can make a decent amount of income, work as little or as much as I wanted to, but still be able to have a business where I can kind of like slowly transition from working into doing something on my own.
Mhm.
But at the same time, now that all the information that I've been learning on utilizing the tax code and depreciation and expensing and stuff like that with bookkeeping and accounting, I can decrease my taxable income
Absolutely.
and kind of just like use the two to kind of feed off of each other.
Yeah. And I think that's the greatest thing about being a business owner is being able to use all of those tax benefits to your advantage. I know when I first started this, nurses to riches business, all of the equipment that I started purchasing for the YouTube channel, you can literally like write all of that off.
It's
And
all deductible.
my laptop, my lighting equipment, my camera, all of that is tax deductible. If you go on a trip that's related to your business or is for business purposes, you can write all of that off too. And a lot of people don't realize that. Oh, we came back from the Cayman Islands and we actually met a couple that had started a business in 2008. They started a restaurant in the Bronx in New York, and it was a minority couple. They started telling me all of this, and I was like really intrigued. They told me they were both chefs. The husband does decorative fruits and platters and stuff like that. The wife cooks. And they then switched from a restaurant to a catering business because they realized maybe if we're catering, we can make more sales because we can cater to all types of venues. And then they realized that was too much legwork. So they opened up a large venue and now they do like weddings and, any birthday parties and sweet 16s, all those types of things. But then they realized, okay, maybe this is too much work also. So now what they do is they have an entire warehouse full of party supplies and they'll rent them out to people that are hosting events. So while we were on vacation, my daughter, who was 15, she's going to be 16 this week, got along so well with their daughter, who's like 14 going on 15. And their daughter asked her parents if they could extend their vacation because she got along so well with my daughter. And they were like, no, you don't even have to ask us twice. They literally canceled their flights. They
Wow.
went to the customer service counter at the hotel and they told them that they wanted to extend their stay. They didn't even question it. That's where I want to be in my life. I want to be able to
Yeah,
say, you know what? We're going to stay here another couple of days. Let's just cancel all of our plans. And
that's beautiful.
yeah, right. But I give it up to people who work so hard because I remember the wife told me there was a point in their lives when they first started their business where they would stay up to like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and she would literally stretch out chairs to lay on so she could sleep in the restaurant because going home meant that they would have to drive 30 minutes to an hour away, sleep for like 2 or 3 hours to then do it again the next day. She was like, it just didn't make sense to her, so she would just sleep in the restaurant. That's kind of like the struggle you have to go through and the challenges to get to success in life. And not many people
Yeah.
are willing to do that.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's just like, it's if it's too easy, then you might be doing something wrong. Like especially
Absolutely.
if you got to where you need to be,
Yeah.
then like, whatever you do what you got to do. But if you're still not where you need to be, you might need to struggle a little bit more. And that's what like, I often kind of tell people.
Yeah.
So it's just like, even what I'm doing right now is it's not easy, but it's getting easier.
Yeah.
Um, Once you start seeing like the seeds that you planted is starting to bear fruit,
Yeah.
and it just kind of gives you motivation to just kind of push a little bit further. It's just like, what else can I get? What else can I do? Like,
Yeah. So, what is your net worth goal before you can say to yourself that we've reached financial independence where we can retire early?
I look at very practical numbers. I look at the fact that there's a good chance we're not going to have Social Security
Yeah.
when we retire. You can't depend on 401ks. Some people lost 50% in their 401ks
Yeah.
during the pandemic alone, and I mean, it like stocks will rebound, markets will rebound, but like some people, if they were close to retirement, that could put them in a very tough situation. So I basically I have it set to a way where it's like I don't have a specific limit,
Hmm.
but I do have minimums.
Yeah,
I want to at least be able to have enough to live comfortably every year for the rest of my life. And then, so that's why I'm putting forward like investments and taking steps so that way I can like maintain a better income in retirement than I have when I was working.
that's awesome. Yeah. So you're looking at like at least a monthly income um, that will be able to replace your current income when
Yeah,
you
at the
retire.
minute, which
At the
is
minute.
like, so right now between me and my wife, I would say if I were to average it out, we would probably bring in about 12,000 after taxes a month.
A month. Yeah, that's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. And that's with you working how many hours currently a week?
So right now I'm working about between the two jobs about 48. I was doing consistent 48 with the travel nursing, but I stopped doing the 48 a weeks and I'm doing a 36-hour a week travel
Yeah,
assignment with a per diem on the side. And
gotcha.
then so it's just like, between the two.
And a lot of people tell me that the traveler rates have gone down. Is that true?
They have gone down,
Uh,
and in a very sharp way, which is one of the reasons I ended up going for.
Wait, so
I
you're
honestly
telling me
was
you're
big
not
on
getting
traveling.
7,800? You're telling me you're not getting 7,800 a week
No, no,
anymore?
sir. I
Yeah, I
started out
mean,
with 7,800. That chick was looking real nice in
yeah,
the beginning,
I bet.
and
You know
then
what? I think I gotta get you're on our Discord channel. I think I need to get Lambo
yeah,
on one of these calls
yeah.
because this
I
guy's
messaged him a
pulling in
few
like
times.
$20,000 a pay period, on average. And
Yeah,
it was I think last year he made like 500K or something like that.
yeah, and he does it without like travel nursing. Like
Yeah,
I think he does like a little bit of travel nursing, but he does his per diems and stuff like
yeah.
that. I know he's working
And
at
now,
Tesla
right?
now.
Yeah, he's at Tesla now.
It's like, where does
Yeah,
he
this
find this
guy,
stuff? But he's go getter. You know what I mean? Like
right,
he's
right. That's
finding
true.
this. I never would have knew there was a nursing position at Tesla if
Yeah,
somebody didn't like find out. Like, let me see if I could do a nursing at Tesla.
yeah.
Who does that?
That's true. That's true. Like I knew Netflix was hiring nurses, but only because
What?
a form yeah, Netflix. Only because a former coworker from New York asked me if I was willing to accept that job in LA. Then I wasn't gonna move from Sacramento to LA for a Netflix job. It's a lot harder also when you have kids. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at right now because I only work 20 hours a week. It's pretty hard to get something like that anywhere else. So, can you break down exactly what your current network is? Like, what does that consist of? Like, what kind of investments or expenses or assets do you own?
All right. Yeah. So I'll start with like currently debt. We've been decreasing.
Mhm.
I've been like just slowly just trying to knock down debt while trying to increase my cash reserves and
Yeah,
then also like investments. I started out just having money sitting in the bank, which they have a funny anecdote where they explain it. It's basically it's just like if you get 0.0001% interest or whatever the average is for what you currently get for leaving your money in a savings account, you
yeah,
basically double your money in 2,400 years.
yeah,
And when I heard that, it's just like, it just kind of sparked that
yeah.
idea. So I was just like, I need to start investing, getting my money moving somewhere. So I started out first with my home in Oakland, which first we were renting. We ended up purchasing, get the house for about, uh, it was listed for $599, as you know, in California,
Dude,
which
that's
is
a
not
great deal,
real.
actually. That is a
That's
great
that's what it
deal.
was. That's what it was listed for.
Yeah. Okay.
Ended up bidding war up to about I think it was 670.
Oh man, that's like almost 100K. That's 100K above listing price.
Yeah, way above listing price. And then when I found out this is the normal thing, especially in the Bay Area, they put these houses at a lower amount. So it's just like you see all these houses, they're 499, 599. And then I used to look at these and they're just like, why don't more people own houses out here? And then
Absolutely.
when I found out, it was just like, no, that's a teaser price, the way that a real estate agent explained to me. That's just to get the people in. Once
Oh,
they
they
love
want
the
bidding
home,
wars for sure.
it's just a bidding war.
Yeah,
So ended up getting the house like, oh my God, 670,000.
yeah,
Most biggest expense that I've ever had. Fast forward to, I just sold the house from, I think it was just over 2 years that I had it sold for 900,000.
Wow.
And this
What?
is just over a month ago. So this is when
Wow.
everybody's saying like, oh, the housing crash, and this is,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
crashing.
Oh man.
It's
You know what?
crashing.
Actually, yeah. So for people that know the area, they're probably looking at it and they're like, damn, we got a good deal on this house.
Yeah, yeah. I
Right?
mean, they're thinking the same thing. But for me,
Yeah.
it was 100-year-old house
Yeah.
built in the
Wow.
1920s. So going with that, it's just like you're going to have repairs from the
A
1920s. You're going to have,
100-year-old house with probably lead paint on it.
yep,
Yeah.
asbestos in the ceiling, all that
Yeah.
stuff, and 900,000.
Wow.
So we at the time that before I even sold it, we were already building the house that we have here now. So this house we got it for about 813,000, and then the value has already increased probably about like maybe 950,000
Man. Yeah. And
from
you
the
just
time that
got it.
was. Yeah, yeah, we just got it in January.
Yeah.
We also have, we were trying to purchase at the same time while we were building this house. We were trying to build the house in Arizona. That one was only like 312,000. And then with the equity from the time that it was finished being built, it would have
Mhm.
been 420,000. But we had some issues that happened with like the paperwork, and then the deal didn't go through. Luckily, it happened on that house and not this one.
Oh, so now you have this house in Southern California that you own,
Mhm.
right? And are you looking at any other investment properties at the moment?
Yeah, I'm actually looking pretty heavily. So, we already had the money that we saved up. And then I had money that I put out into the market. And when I started investing, probably like right at when the pandemic started, and I was just going into everything. But the funny thing is, just like a lot of people that started there, it's like you could have just thrown your money into anything and made money.
True.
So I was investing in like anything you could think of. And like, I didn't really like learn the foundations before I just started doing it.
Mhm.
So I was just I was following about 25 different companies and investing in 25 different companies at the same time, and having the
Wow.
research information on this company, that company, Tesla, Apple, Google, Palantir, Bionanogenomics, anything
Yeah.
you could think of that like was hot at the moment. And I actually did decent. I made a decent amount, like, off of what I had invested. Aside from like the staples that I put in as far as the total stock market,
Mhm.
the ones that they were doing on My Rich Journey,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
those basic index funds and
Yeah.
REITs. But I was getting in, then I started learning stock options. Then I started doing call options. Then I started doing puts. So I was able to culminate for probably that year during the pandemic, probably about like a gain of 25,000.
Yeah. Wow. And that's after taxes?
Yeah, yeah, that was after taxes.
Yeah.
And then I like the losses. You can actually claim some of your losses, which are deductible. So any of the losses that I had, I decreased it against like my taxable income.
Yeah.
And then when I ended up selling at the height of the market, right before everything crashing, because
Mhm.
I had the two real estate deals. So I
Wow.
needed to get like the funds out of everything that I had invested in.
Mhm.
So it was killing me because I was just like, man, these stocks are rising and everything like that. I
Yeah.
sold everything, and literally 2 weeks after, everything just started crashing.
Yeah.
And
The perfect timing.
it was I got lucky. I got incredibly lucky. Everybody
Yeah.
says don't time the market, and I see why, because there's no way I could have planned that out. Um,
Yes.
but I took that into account, and so I was able to take that money. I put it to the side to be able to put down these two houses. Unfortunately, the one deal didn't go through, so I still had that money saved up. I put whatever I needed to for the down payment for this house. So now our next goal is to get a multifamily unit. So we want to get something at least like 3 to 4 units, triplex, quadruplex. And my goal would either be to rent it out if it's in an area that I'm going to get like a good amount of cash flow,
Mhm.
or to do Airbnb. But it's got to be in an area it's going to be like, profitable or ideal for Airbnb. The other option would be to live in the property and then have the other properties basically pay for my living expenses. So that way, everything I get, I can just save and then put towards the next investment.
That's a Graham Stephan move right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I watch a little bit of that too.
Yeah, yeah. And what kind of car do you currently drive?
So that's another interesting story. So I got an Acura RDX at the
Okay.
beginning of the pandemic. Probably about like, as soon as I heard on the news that they were dropping interest rates, I ran to the dealership. When my car was giving me issues, I had this Honda Accord. So I got my Acura, and I ran some miles on it. I used
Yeah.
it during that time. So when up until the point where I was about to sell it, I was watching the car market, and the cars were inflated just due
Yeah.
to the supply shortage and inflation.
Yeah.
Because of that, the value of used cars, went up to the point
Yes.
that they were about the cost of a brand new car, but they
Yeah.
were still in higher
True.
demand.
Yes.
So when I started following the news, I was following real closely, and they were just like, "Okay, the car crash is about to happen." I went to the dealership where I purchased my car, and I sold it back for about $2,000 less than what I purchased it for.
Wow.
After having it,
That's crazy. Yeah.
for like
Yeah.
2.5 years.
Wow.
So I kind of made money on it, and then I ended up I wanted to decrease my debt. So what I did is I got into, it's not a lease, but it's a subscription service.
Mhm.
So it's a subscription service for Tesla, which is with this
Oh,
new company that they have. And
yeah.
they only started in California, but they're going to branch out to the other cities. And
Mhm.
then so it's a way for you to just like subscribe to a Tesla. So I
Yeah.
got a Tesla Model 3, and you only pay like 490 a month after the initiation fee.
Mhm.
And then after that, you can hold it as long as you want. So you don't have a limit of like 3 years, like a traditional lease.
I see.
I was never a fan of doing leasing before. I was just like, oh, you have to own the car. You have to own the car. The
Yeah.
whole Dave Ramsey mindset and everything like
Yeah.
that. But, the thing that I looked at it as far as like more in the immediate term, if I have like, let's say the same Tesla on my debt to income ratio, and I want to get into an investment property, they're going
Mhm.
to see, oh, you have this $50,000 loan, that you have, and even though it's for my vehicle,
I see what you
um,
mean.
they see that.
That
I
makes sense.
have I structured it in a way where the amount that I'm paying is the same amount that I was paying for my car payment when I had the Acura, but
Mhm.
I no longer have that car payment. I have
Yes.
no car loan
Yeah.
on my debt.
It
After
makes sense, if you're looking to purchase investment properties because they're not looking at a $50,000 loan on your credit report anymore
Yeah.
because, you're not financing a car. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I did it with a specific purpose. If I would go back, if and I didn't have like a deal that I was going for, I probably would have just purchased a car and then just kind of made payments. But because
Yeah.
I have those specific goals, that's one of the reasons that I'm going to do it.
Gotcha. And do you know what your monthly budget is, how much you're spending on a monthly basis, and how much you have left over after all of your expenses are paid?
So I would say uh, my monthly budget, it's gone down since I sold the house because I was paying the mortgage for two houses in California at the same time.
Mm.
So my one mortgage was 4,000 a month.
Okay.
My new
Yeah.
mortgage was 4,700 a month.
The new one, the
So
one that
that
you
was,
currently have, right?
yeah.
And that's on
So
a
when
$900,000 house.
$900,000 house. So I was paying the two at one time,
Wow.
on top of my expenses. So it was a little bit of a stretch. It's just one of the reasons why I did the travel nursing as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
But now I just have the house, which is 4,700 a month.
That must have been a
Um,
relief when you knocked that other one down.
it was I had a full head of hair before that.
Yeah.
It was difficult, but now that I got it off my hands, it's
Mhm.
such like I can kind of just like breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
I was still able to cover everything. I wasn't going into the negatives and stuff
Uh-huh.
like that, but it's just like money I could have been investing or putting somewhere.
Yeah.
So now that's off my hands.
Mhm.
One thing with new houses, or at least in the area that we were, you had to get solar panels. which
Mhm.
was, I was a little bit apprehensive towards. So it was like, basically it has to come with the house.
Yeah.
So now I have no electric bill.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's like negative.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah. So other than that, water expenses, a few other maybe trash and stuff like that, I probably maybe come out to, I want to say like 6,000 a month.
Yeah, so you still have 6,000 left over at the end of the month to invest or save, whatever the case may be. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so we're hunkering down and we're getting ready because I got burnt during the last recession,
Yeah.
and I told myself like this time around I'm gonna make full utilization of it.
Yeah. I agree with being burnt out, man. That's why I reduced my hours to 20 a week because I was picking up so many hours before, well, at the height of the pandemic, really. Just me and Monica, we were working a lot of hours and you know what? When the pandemic first reached us, we had no savings in our bank account. It was scary. There was, and I don't know if you were working at Stanford at the time, but there were employees at Stanford that got their pay cut by 20% for I think a couple of weeks or so. But that I can't even imagine something like that happening to us. Or like there was some employees across the country that were getting laid off. And I just couldn't
Mhm.
see that happening to us because if it did, we would not know what to do. I mean, we were spending at the time we had a Volvo that had a $1,200 monthly payment on it. We had this house which is about $4,000 a month. We also had like some student loans that we had to pay, and we had a loan that we ended up getting so we can purchase this house so we can use as a down payment for this house, and that was about $70,000. So when COVID first hit and they weren't even giving us overtime initially, and all of this was going on, Monica and I, we sat down together and we were like, you know what, we need to do something about this. Once they start offering overtime, we need to start picking up a lot of overtime. And that's why within that 1 year, we paid like $128,000 of debt and cleared it all out. So now the only debt we do have is just our mortgage payment. But man, it was such a relief to not have any more monthly payments to a creditor or another agency that I didn't want to give my money to anymore, you know.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah,
Not
and
a
dude,
lot of
that
people
yeah,
can cover that much, like, clear that much debt in
yeah,
a short amount of time. And
correct.
it takes a lot of the discipline to do something like that. That's pretty cool.
Well, and at the time, I think COVID kind of helped out because there was no way we could travel, and Monica she loves traveling, and she knew, well, we can't travel now. I might as well work. So that's what she
Yeah.
did. She picks up a lot of hours, man. She picks up so many more hours than I do, but she does enjoy what she does. What she does and where she works. She's a telemetry room nurse. So she really
Okay.
enjoys it. That's what I did when I first became a nurse. I was a telemetry room nurse. But
Okay.
now I've been ER for about 10 years now. So, um, I did get to the point though where I'm like, maybe I'm done with the ER. Maybe that's just enough. I think I should move somewhere else. But hopefully, the trajectory that this nurses to riches thing is going on, maybe me leaving, the ER will come sooner rather than later. We'll see
Mm.
though. I don't know where I'm gonna go. Probably the PACU after this.
Yeah. Or even, yeah. PACU, cath lab.
Yeah. It'd be cool if I could do a non-bedside related specialty, but I don't know, man. A lot of those are usually like 9 to 5s, and I'm not about that 9 to 5 life.
Yeah, it's very different because that's what I was doing at Stanford. I basically, it was the trade off of going away from the bedside. You transition to 40 hours.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily a specific 9 to 5. I was like, sometimes the schedule would just mix around because it was a 24-hour operation. But you got a larger chunk of your time is taken away from you.
The feelings that you have now towards your career, are they any different than they were pre-COVID?
Yeah, it definitely has evolved a lot. And part of that is because I decided to kind of step out of my comfort zone and go to other areas, is that you don't have to stay where you are.
True.
You don't have to stay like, it doesn't matter what department you started in, even if you were in inpatient rehab, med surge, it doesn't matter. You can always try to just like put your toe in the water or something else and see if it works.
Yeah.
So I love nursing. I love helping people. But I deserve to have, a life where I can enjoy my retirement and not have to wait until I'm, 60, 70 years old. So, that's one of the things I started looking at now. Some of these nurses, it seems like they're going to retire at the bedside.
Yeah.
And I can't have that. And I don't see it like in my trajectory.
Yeah. I have people often ask me, hey, what's the pension look like at Kaiser? Or when I reach retirement, do you think I'm going to get this much in Social Security? And I'm always telling them, if your plan is to rely on a pension or Social Security, then you might have some trouble ahead of you in your future because I've been laid off twice, right, from previous jobs. This was before I became a nurse, but being laid off twice before put me in a mindset that I should never rely on an employer to provide me with future income, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. So I always tell myself it's up to me. I got to make the investments in my future now and not let that be in the control of my employer. You know, I don't know how these people are willing to wait, till they're 59 and a half or 65 years old before they can retire
Yeah.
and hopefully live off of their pension and social security and possibly 401ks. Me, I want to have investment income that I can live off of, businesses or real estate, whatever the case may be. But it has to be something that I'm in control of, right?
Hmm. And that's the key.
Yeah. So, do you have any advice for anybody who's wanting to get into nursing today?
Don't think twice about it. If you really want to do it, just start doing it. I had to do the prerequisites before I could even get in the program.
Yeah.
So, before I did, I probably went like a good 10 years, out in the workforce, laid off several times, working in different, positions where ranging from sales to real estate, things like that. And, I was terrified of science
Yeah.
and like I got into anatomy and physiology and I fell in love with it. When you're first starting out in nursing is probably the easiest time to kind of transition and go to where you want to go.
Mhm.
Don't listen to the nurses that tell you got to start in med surge and you got to stay there for 3 years before you can go wherever you want to go. You want to go into ICU, go into ICU, try out ER, try out cath lab. If you get the opportunity, because it's very sparse where you get those doors of opportunity. Because one reality that you probably know is just like hospitals don't really like to cross train as much as you might think they do. They
Yeah.
want to
That's
hire ER nurses for ER positions. They want to hire ICU nurses for ICU positions. So
yeah.
if you get the chance to, just do it.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, Herve, this was a great talk with you. I am so glad you managed to get on this call with me.
Yeah, me too. I was
Not
excited.
many people know. I didn't even know you were Amand E
Yeah.
when you put in this request for the appointment. But dude, I'm so glad you managed to get on this call with me. And for those of you that are not on Discord, you should get on Discord because we're always having some really cool and interesting conversations on there. All right, so Herve, I'm going to end this call and I'll talk to you on Discord. All right, guys, that's it for this episode. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and follow us for more.